Hi, everyone. Welcome to The 60 Project, a podcast produced by Livewire Productions in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. This is a podcast about navigating our 60s. I'm Tracy Thomas, and I just finished my first film, a featured documentary called My First and Last Film, where I sought out to learn more about turning 60, talking to 60-year-olds, and dealing with the loss of my mother and my filmmaker partner and boyfriend, Dennis Peters. But even when I finished the film, I didn't feel like I was done interviewing people in their 60s. I wanted to learn more about what's next. And this is where the 60 Project begins, a podcast where I ask people about the big ones, about death, dying, love, loss, and about recognizing yourself even better with every passing day. Welcome to another episode of the 60 Project podcast. And as always, thank you for tuning in. I am excited today for today's show. I think it's going to be very fun and enlightening because my guest today is an astrologer. She began studying astrology in 1973. She went professional in 1990. And let me tell you, she's got quite the long resume. She's authored a few books on astrology. She's contributed articles to several astrology publications. She's lectured to astrology groups and spoken at conferences. She's got a podcast, which I believe airs on Mondays. She's got a website, which is a beautiful website, actually. And I believe she does individual readings. And this gal knows her stuff. She's got it going on. And today we're going to talk about, among a few other things, something called Saturn Return, which is an astrological event that occurs at key points in our lives. And one of those key points happens right before we turn 60. So we're going to chat about that a little bit. And we're going to see how that all plays a role, how astrology can play a role in this aging game. So let's get to it. Please let me introduce my guest, April Elliott Kent of Big Sky Astrology. And she's joining us today from San Diego, California. April, welcome. Thanks for being here.
It's so wonderful to be here. Thank you, Tracy. I'm really excited about conversing with you.
Yay.
Especially on this particular topic.
First, let me get this out of the way. We're still in a pandemic. How are you holding up over there?
Doing just fine. San Diego has been kind of mellow.
Okay.
And my job is such that it really hasn't changed much because I do this all day. I'm talking with people on Skype, or I'm writing, or whatever. So weeks at a time would go by where I didn't see too many people other than my husband and my neighbor and the UPS guy anyway. So it's really not a huge thing, but we're doing okay. But as the weather's gotten more and more beautiful, you can just feel people champing at the bit and just really wanting to get out and get on with things. So it's frustrating time here as well as everywhere.
Yeah, we're kind of opening up and the weather is nice and people are just out and about and doing whatever they want. So that's kind of where we are. We're not going to get too deep into that because that's not what we're here to talk about. But
right.
Glad you're doing okay. And let's begin by talking a little bit about astrology in general. And if you can briefly kind of say what astrology is and what happens during astrology and should we be paying attention to it?
Well, people have paid attention to it for thousands of years, and it's one of those subjects that just won't go away. It has moments of vogue and moments when it's out of style, and right now it's kind of having a resurgence, I think, especially among younger people. But really, I've been in it for a long time, and I've kind of seen the trends come and go. So the common misapprehension I find about astrology, number one, is that people really know it through sun sign columns in the newspaper. And they know about their sun sign and that kind of thing. And it gives, I don't think an incorrect picture, but a very limited picture. And what an actual astrologer does is work with the entire sky. And in particular, at the time of your birth, we look, of course, at the sun. The sun is very important. That's why sun sign astrology can work even as well as it does. It's because the sun is so important. And there are lots of other things in the sky, though. So we also look at the moon. We look at Mercury through Pluto. We look at these planets in our solar system, and each of them tells us something about the life process and what people are working with.
Okay.
with their chart. So really, astrologers work with maps of the sky, and a common misconception is that we're the same as numerology, we're the same as tarot, we're psychics. And I would say that with a few exceptions, we're not. I mean, that's not what we do. We may do a few things, but what makes us astrologers is we look at these maps of the sky that we call charts. And the whole concept behind astrology and why we feel that it works, there's no causal mechanism that we can point to and say, oh, there's this gravitational pull of the planets or anything. Most modern astrologers don't think that way at all. What we think instead is there's some kind of symmetry between what happens on Earth and what happens in the sky. And we see it as observable, and to us it makes a lot of sense. It's a very poetic system, and it's used for lots of different things in a lot of different ways. And
that's quite the sky. It's like you say, a big sky. There's a lot going on up there.
Yeah, absolutely.
We should maybe be taking advantage of that. And boy, that's some of that went right over my head, I must admit. But I think I'm one of those that just looks at my horoscope every day. That I get my email. It's like, well, that's pretty true and that's pretty accurate. But that doesn't.
That's fine on that level. To me, it's like that gets people into astrology in a deeper way, or it doesn't. And to me, it doesn't make a lot of difference. I mean, there are people that write columns like that. I've written columns like that. Every astrologer has at some point, and you do your best to bring some really good insights to it. But it's hard because you are only writing based on one small little part of a person's chart and life and sky. Yeah. So.
Do you yourself follow it pretty religiously? Do you let it guide your life, or do you put your faith in it to guide you somehow? I mean, or do you
Not
just
much
stuff happen?
Yeah, I really don't much. No, if there's something really big. So lately I've been deliberating about getting a new cat. We had 2 cats for 17 years and we lost them 6 months apart. And it's been kind of hard being without a cat.
Sure.
And as far as the timing goes to get another cat, the planet Venus has been going backwards in the sky, what we call retrograde. A lot of people have heard of Mercury retrograde.
Yes. Venus
goes retrograde as well every, 18 months or something. And Venus, which in my particular birth chart has dominion over small animals and pets. So I knew for me, while Venus is going retrograde, it's not the best idea to get a cat. Because what's going to happen is there's going to be something about the cat I don't know. There's going to be something that's going to surface later. Yep. There's going to be something that ends up not being great. No, but this is a relationship that could last me 17 to 20 years. So it's worth looking at that. If it's, is this a good time to go to the store? I mean, that would just be silly.
Right. So, that's true. Right.
Yeah. Because you have to live your life. You don't always have the luxury of waiting.
Right. Right. You can't. Yeah.
So I don't do it much. I mean, if I were, when I got married, I went to my astrology teacher and said, choose this a day to do it and big decisions.
I believe in using it for things like that. If you're going to a major decision going on, it might be, it seems like it'd be interesting to check out everything to see what lines up and best time to do things. It's funny you mentioned the cat because almost everybody I know, including myself, has been talking about, I like to get a cat and I like to get a dog. And I'm thinking, I haven't had a dog in 20 years and I'm lately thinking, oh wow, I think it's time to get a dog. And then it's like, why is that happening right now? Is it because
of the lockdown? Yeah, I guess everybody's home more and maybe.
And I'm looking on websites and I'm looking at the dogs and it's like, that one's cute. And it's like, I almost went over there to get the dog. I thought, slow down a little bit. It's
Hold on, cool your jets.
Cool your jets, right? Cool your jets. I haven't heard that term.
But I mean, there is a time for everything. And the idea with astrology is to recognize those times. And not that you shouldn't proceed with something, because sometimes what'll happen is you'll get backed into a corner. Astrologers will say, Mercury is retrograde, which it is right now. And we'd say, well, it's not the best time to buy a car because cars are kind of ruled by Mercury. But let's say you depend on your car to get to your job and it dies. What are you going to do? You're not going to wait for Mercury to go direct. You're going to get a car. You have to live your life. So it's the balance of what I see with astrology is it's more It's more something that helps me figure out what's going on rather than telling me what to do. It's like
Yeah,
helping
okay.
me identify the
Okay.
energy of the moment.
Right.
And then I make the decision based on
Okay. It's more of what's going on up there as dictating how maybe you should proceed with something other than letting it, like you're just waiting for it to guide you. I mean, you have to like work
it.
with
Right.
it in a
I
way.
think of it more as a reflection even.
A
Not
reflection.
even so much as something that I'm looking to say, okay, tell me what to do. It's more, it is reflecting the processes at work on Earth. That's how I look at it. I mean, ask
Okay.
a dozen astrologers, you're going to get a slightly different interpretation of that.
Yeah.
But that's the idea behind it. And when people will often ask, do you believe in astrology? People generally that think it's pretty silly. And I think, well,
Yeah.
there is a belief. I used to answer it like this. I'd say, well, no, it's a language and you don't believe or disbelieve in a language. But there is a fundamental underpinning of belief. And the belief that you have to have is that everything's connected. Because if you don't believe that, it doesn't make any sense at all to look at the sky and think there's some connection between that and this.
Right. For
So
sure.
that is the belief system.
And that makes sense to me because I feel like as I get older, I'm adopting that attitude a little bit more as far as this connection thing, and we're all connected, and transitioning and all this stuff. It all kind of seems to make a little more sense right now. Not that I didn't believe it before, but I think I'm just thinking about it in maybe a different way.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not opposed to astrology. I don't think I know enough about it to dive in, and I don't know. I mean,
I think that's where most people are. That's where I find most people.
right.
And my books are sort of written for those people,
Okay.
especially
Oh.
one book that I wrote.
Oh.
It's to say, say you want to know a little bit more about this than just what's in your, horoscope column. But you don't have a ton of time to get a PhD, in the subject of black belt. So this is an introduction that's just friendly and, just kind of lays it out just like I did to you. So, yeah.
Okay.
But most people, very few people who are exposed to astrology, because nearly all of us are, if only through a newspaper column, very few get very seriously interested in studying it in any great depth. So,
because I imagine, like you said, get a PhD and you have to study it for years, and probably that takes a lot of work, and most of us aren't willing to or don't have the interest. I mean, maybe we have time now because we have time.
A lot more people are studying with me right now, I'll tell you, because they do have the time.
Oh, interesting. Isn't that
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. They're going to study something, and maybe they've been telling themselves for years,
Yeah.
I'd really like to know more about that, but when do I have the time? And now it's like, well, the 2 hours a day that you're not commuting to and from your job, you have time to do a little something.
Lots of online courses right now
Yeah.
that I think are pretty popular. How did you get started? I read a little bit on your website about, your history and all that, your bio. How did you kind of get started or interested in astrology? Because you've been doing it for like 30 plus years. So what was that thing that sparked your, like, I got to do this?
Well, it really started when I was a kid. I was 12 years old and I read Linda Goodman's Sun Signs, which everybody did in the 70s. I think it was the law that everybody had a copy of this book laying around. And I read it and went, wow, this is really for me. It just really interested me. It sparked my interest. And as the years went on, of course, there's no internet at that time in the 70s. And my options for learning the subject were a little bit limited. So I ended up going to bookstores, and I would sit cross-legged in the aisle reading these books that I couldn't afford to buy about astrology, and was always taught myself how to calculate charts because there were no computer programs there really to do it. So it was about the time, but I was going to be a singer. I was on the road to be a musician. And I also was my day gig was being an executive secretary. So I was doing all of this stuff. And one day I was sitting in my office, and this engineer walks by, the least likely looking guy you can think of that would be interested in astrology. I said, oh, Jerry, what are you doing after work? And he said, well, I'm going to see my astrologer. And I said, what? Because at this point I'd never met an astrologer, and I'd been keen on astrology forever. And so he introduced me, really to her. I went to her for a reading. And I went, yes, everything just exploded. And it was around the time of my first Saturn return.
There you go.
Our topic today.
Yes.
When it's often a time that you'll be reevaluating your career path, what it is that you're going to do as your calling. And so this thing I'd always been so interested in, that's when I got very serious about
Wow.
studying.
So right place, right time, do you think?
I think so.
So it was telling you like, here you go, I'm here it is.
There's
Right
this
on there.
saying that when the student is ready, the teacher will arrive.
Right.
And that really was true in that case. Met up with her. She was a terrific teacher. Studied with her for a couple of years, really intensely in a class, and put out my shingle. And this is what I've been doing ever since.
Wow. And let's, that's great. Let's talk about the Saturn return in case some of our listeners and viewers don't know. I'm thinking anybody that's watching that knows about astrology probably knows what Saturn return is.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a few Saturn, there's 3 Saturn returns. I mean, from
if
what
you're lucky, yeah.
if you're lucky, right? If you're lucky.
Yeah.
And the first one, as you said, occurs for you, well, for everybody, like right before you turn 30.
Mm-hmm.
And can anybody prepare? Let's talk about Saturn, what Saturn return is, and can people prepare for a Saturn return? And do you know what it is, what's happening?
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole, for me, the whole reason of knowing about astrology is to be able to really make a creative reaction to what life throws our way. Well, it begins with talking about the planet Saturn, because each of the planets, as I said, we look at all of the planets, not just the sun. And Saturn is the planet of maturity. All of the planets, the things I'm going to say are fairly generalized because each planet has very complex symbolism.
Yeah.
But with Saturn, it's about taking yourself seriously, having a career that's meaningful to you, being mature, being responsible for the state of your life.
Okay.
It's really what Saturn's about. Saturn has a
Saturn in general, or the first Saturn?
Saturn in general.
Okay.
Anytime you're looking at Saturn in a chart, these are the kinds of things it's talking about.
Okay.
Your reaction to authority figures, all of that stuff. So each of the planets has a cycle and the amount of time it takes to go around the sun.
Okay.
And these cycles are really significant. The sun has a cycle of 1 year, and each year around the time the sun comes back to where it was in your chart, you have your solar return. The sun comes back to the place that it was. Beginning of a new 1 year cycle. Well, with Saturn, it's the same thing, but Saturn has this super long cycle of 29 years to go around the sun. And that means it takes 29 years to get back to the place it was at the time you were born. Are you with me?
I think, yes.
Yeah. It takes 29 years. So during that time, it's still, if we're looking at your birth chart and we're kind of superimposing Saturn in there in the sky, we see it moving all the way around 360 degrees of your birth chart. And then around the age of 29, somewhere that year, it gets back to the very spot that it was when you were born. It is a moment of reckoning.
Yeah.
Right? It's a time of reassessment and of saying, how do I want to show up in the world as a serious person? What is my calling? What am I here to accomplish? Especially in worldly terms.
Right? Yeah, like looking for something or seeking something or searching for what you're supposed to be, what path you should be on or something.
And particularly the word accomplishment comes to mind. Yeah. What do I want to accomplish in the world? What do I want to build? Is a Saturn word.
Okay.
So at the first Saturn return, think about the age that you're at. You're at 29. We've all, most people listening to this podcast have been there, right? And getting up onto 30, which is a big number, and it's really scary, just kind of looming out there in the distance. And here comes Saturn. And Saturn also is very serious, and he can feel a little bit grim. He can feel a little bit discouraging. And it's because the things symbolized by Saturn are things that require sacrifice and hard work from us. To have a true sense of accomplishment means you got to work hard.
Yes, absolutely.
You can't accomplish as things can be given to you. But you can't accomplish anything without work, dedication, and drive.
Right.
And these are all of the things that Saturn brings to the table and says, how well are you doing with that? And at 29, we are usually evaluating ourselves by external criteria. So what does the world say that a person should be doing at the age of 30? Well, you should be married, you should have children, you should own a house, you should be making X number of dollars a year.
You should have an awesome career, you should have,
Exactly. 10% off every paycheck going into your 401k. All of that stuff, right?
Yeah.
And if you're not doing that at that age, you can feel a little bit like an underachiever sometimes. Even if you're doing a job that by all, I don't know, by all outward appearances looks like you're actually doing really well.
But maybe it's not, and so the key thing here is, if I'm understanding, maybe it's, but you don't feel like it's what you should be doing.
Right.
Or where you might feel lost or unsatisfied or.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like it's not enough.
Yeah.
When I was coming to that point in my own job, I had a job where I was making a lot of money for an executive secretary. I was working for an officer of a large agency and doing really well. There was only one level above me in terms of that support staff in a really big organization. I should have been feeling pretty darn good about what I was doing. And I was absolutely miserable because I was not engaged by the work and I was working for someone else. I didn't like it. So the money wasn't enough. And that's what you have to decide at that birthday.
Okay.
What feels like success?
Yeah. It's interesting because this morning, and when I was preparing for our chat today, and I was kind of refreshing my refreshing my brain on the Saturn and the 30 and the 60, and I did a little arithmetic, and I wanted to look back to where I was at 30, and I'm making my birth age, and what, when I had a business with my ex-husband, and I was like 29 when we had just started our business, and I'm like, what?
How did it feel? How did it feel, that business? Did you
feel?
Well,
it was him that started it, which is here nor there. It's not a bad thing. And he quit his job and he wanted to start this, and so by 1983 we were like kind of getting deep into it, and I quit my job and I worked with him. We worked together. It was all pretty awesome, actually, and it turned out to be very successful. We had it for like 16 years. So it was a pretty cool thing. I felt like it was good. It was part of a team, but as the years went on, I'm kind of like, well, that's not really my gig. I was happy to be there, happy to be part of the team, but it really wasn't my gig. Again, nothing wrong with anything, but it was this inner thing, this inner narrative going on that, like, I don't know, what else should I be doing? Mm-hmm. I don't know. I didn't know what that was. So I just thought that was kind of interesting. I'm doing the math this morning.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. And I mean, that to me is pretty typical.
Yeah. Okay.
Of that age. It's like, and it sounds like you had what we would call a successful response to your Saturn return, because whatever took you guys to that stage where you decided the thing that's going to work for us is to have our own business, it was probably preceded by a period of you guys going, we're really not happy with this thing we're doing. Yeah. And to feel successful and good going forward, this is the thing we're going to do. Yeah. I mean, that's, like I say, that's when I went out and started my career as an astrologer. I felt very good about it. And if that's the position you're in at your first Saturn return, it can be a very happy experience. It's not, there is this jump getting over the actual Saturn return. An astrologer can tell you, what actual dates those are and that kind of things. But really what it does is you have to get past this inertia that happens, and the fear and the lack of self-confidence you might have or whatever to start something new. But then if you do it, Saturn goes, yes. It's like really, really there to support you in it. But life is cyclical. Okay. And because Saturn has a 29-year cycle, it also has these critical moments along the way in its cycle, about every 7.5 years, 7.25 years. Okay. So probably, if I had to guess, I'd say about 7.25 years after you guys started your business, maybe some of these questions might have started to form. It's like, well, what more do we need to do? Then at the 14-year mark after it, it's like, yeah, this is not working anymore. I got to do something about this. So it's natural to outgrow the things that we build for ourselves. So
I'm just thinking about myself, which maybe
Your mind's being blown. I could see.
My mind's being blown because I'm fast forwarding, like, so we had the business for a while, and then the business grew, we hired more people, and then we sold it in 1998. So you're talking about the 14-year thing. So we started in 83, 83 and 14 is 97.
Right.
And that's where things got a little restless and we're getting burned out, and we had a bunch of employees, and I hope everybody's enjoying my little trip down memory lane here.
I am.
But then he got restless and he wasn't happy, so he had to do something else. So he had to leave.
Mhm.
we got divorced. So that was a couple years later, but
Yeah.
the pattern is pretty, kind of blown away here how that happened.
Yeah, it's a natural rhythm
Yeah.
of life, you know?
Yeah.
And when we talk about this, the snow accident, we talk about the 7-year itch. It
Yeah.
is a it's a part of Saturn's cycle. And it's the itchy point because it's what we have to reevaluate the sort of container that we put ourselves in, which is
Right.
Saturn. The
Okay.
thing that we built for ourselves that we say, for now, this is right for me. But you have to keep reevaluating that
Right.
along the line.
Yeah.
And that's part of the process once you get to the second Saturn return, right? By
Okay.
then you have gone through, several more of those 7-year cycles from
So,
where you
so the
start.
so the second Saturn return is what we're talking about when you're about to turn 60.
Hmm.
So let's see, 29. Let's see, about 30. So another 29. Yeah, there you go. Okay.
Yeah, about
Make sure.
58.
So 50. So 58ish. Okay. So are you 58 or 60
I
or?
just had my second Saturn return.
You did.
I'll turn
Ah,
59 in August.
that's
Yeah.
right. How did that
I'm
go?
fresh off it.
So did that seem mind blowing or seem normal or seem weird, or how did that journey go? How did that
It
adventure
was
go?
hard. Now, of course, I was very optimistic about it because my first Saturn return I felt had been really successful.
Yeah.
I started my business and I did all of these things. So coming into the second Saturn return, I thought, yeah, this is going to be great. I'm going to do wonderful things. It's going to be fantastic.
Problem. Yeah.
And it has been. But what I had to do was reevaluate a lot of the ways I was doing my business and the commitments that I had made to the greater community, for instance, doing service in organizations, on boards and steering committees and that kind of thing, that
Okay.
was taking so much of my time and so much of my energy. When really I'm at an age now, as you get to the second Saturn return, then it's like, want to retire at some point.
Right.
I've got to get really serious about making bank between now and then. So I got to stop doing this stuff that doesn't cost me anything. I've got Saturn in it situated in my chart in a way that is very bottom line focused with money. So frankly, that's really what this Saturn return's been about. So it was a little messy untangling myself from some of those commitments. Now I stand before you now, a free woman in all respects there. But it was also about, I had to decide. There was a moment when I really had to decide. And I thought, well, am I going to get there with this business? I've been doing it for 30 years, but am I going to really get to where I want to be 8 years from now?
Okay.
So I had to really think about that. So the Saturn reevaluation. And what you do at the second Saturn return, the work's a little bit different than at the first. Because the first, you're at a particular stage of life and you feel very old. I mean, you just feel like, oh my God, I'm over the hill. And of course, by the second Saturn return, we know much better. But we also feel less apt to define success in external terms.
Right.
It's more internally driven.
Yeah. It's where you are in life, and hopefully you're comfortable in your own skin, and you found other things that make you happy, like maybe the external, like the job did or the house did back when you were 30. It's a different kind of uh, assessment, I guess, of where you
Yeah,
are.
I think the scorecard is
Yeah.
scored very differently.
Yeah.
And it's much more about, what does success look like to me? What am I going to do for myself? You're less apt to need a lot of permission from the world for
Right.
whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
It's like, well, that may be what they're doing. This is what I want to do. So from that point of view, it's an extremely exciting point of life if you're doing it right. If
I
you
was gonna say, if you're doing it right, if you're
yeah,
if you're
right,
giving yourself permission to do that,
right.
do those things, to feel those things.
And if you have managed along the way to design your life around the concept that it's okay to have work that's meaningful to you, it's living in a way financially that supports the opportunity to make decisions, to have
Yeah.
a little more freedom, a little more flexibility as you move through that next 30 years, because not everybody can. I mean, I'm speaking
Right.
from a position of relative privilege in that regard.
Right.
But for a lot of people, there's a lot of waste. There's waste of time. There's waste of money. There's waste of resources as we're just kind of going, yeah, I guess this is what I'll do for 30 years and then I'll retire. And that's the big mistake that I see people make at the first Saturn return, is not taking the leap like you and your husband did, or like I did.
Yeah.
To do what's important.
It was a pretty scary leap, let me tell you.
Oh, it's so scary, right?
I questioned it for quite a while. And then I had to realize who he was, and this is how he does things. And I had to put my faith in him because he's super smart and very cautious and thinks things through. So
well, that's the other part of it.
Yeah.
You can't just jump off the cliff. That's Jupiter's job. Saturn's job is, no, really, what is authentic to you? That is the question for Saturn.
Right.
Are you being driven by what's important to you or important to the world?
Right, because he was restless in his corporate job, and I think because he was 30 before I was 30, or 29. So he was already restless, and that's, I think, how this all began.
Yes.
So
he was ahead of the curve.
He was ahead of the curve.
Just ahead of you, and seeing the road ahead and saying this, no bueno, and so you're like, yeah, okay, I'll go along for this ride.
Luckily it turned out. But let's get back to the second Saturn. So so with the second Saturn, you have to be, you're on the other side, and you've hopefully found yourself, and you don't take things so seriously, but you still have to be cautious of, you have to proceed with caution, obviously, as far as, like I say, you can't jump into things, and you have to, because hopefully we will maybe make it to the next Saturn, which is the third Saturn, which is when you're approaching 90.
Exactly. So that's key to it, is to think of it not just in terms of, oh, this is so great being this age and I've got it all figured out, because of course we don't. We're gonna, hopefully have another 29 years. So we're starting at the beginning of another Saturn cycle. And the thing with these cycles, with life, with Saturn, with anything, is it follows us. We carry it through. Right. Saturn, we say, is a planet of karma, because it says if you have done these things, then this is what will naturally proceed from that. And if you have not set up the foundation, then you're going to be limited in what you can do.
I see.
Yeah.
You have to become friends with karma.
Oh gosh, yes. You have to become friends with Saturn, and he's not an easy guy to become friends with. He's, think of the Grim Reaper, his black hood and his set, But I'll tell you, when you do the work with Saturn, he can reward you like no other planet. You see people have enormous success at key Saturn moments in their lives if they have really done the work. And it's always this story of, oh, I was just about to quit and everything was so hard and I couldn't get anywhere. And then suddenly the clouds part and you have this wonderful breakthrough. But you have to get past the actual Saturn return, and then you really can, because I don't care how prepared you are. I don't care how much you've done the work, how much good karma you've sown. You get to these ages and you start to go, God, I'm getting old. I really am gonna have to. Someday I want to retire. Someday I really am gonna die. Mortality really comes into view, and that's okay.
Oh, yeah.
There are moments in life it's important to do that. If you haven't been taking care of yourself physically by the second Saturn return, that's when we start to see health problems. Because Saturn, again, it carries through. He says, well, there's only so much I can do with this. Look at what you did to your body in your 20s. Look at how you continue to abuse it, for the last 30 years. What can we do with this? Well, at least you can do this. And Saturn, we say, is the planet of responsibility, because he said it's not about blame, but it's about, well, you have the ability to respond. You have responsibility in some way. So from where you are now, what are you going to do with that? And if people come to me for a reading and we're talking about Saturn and they're at this age and all I hear is complaints and all I hear is whining and all I hear is victimhood, I'm thinking, you are not working with Saturn at all. And there's nothing that I can do for you.
And that makes a lot of sense. I mean, but for people that aren't into astrology and Saturn, I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense to me. I don't even know if I want to believe it. How can those people get through their second Saturn in a lovely way. With if they're closing the door on Saturn, I'm not believing that stuff. How are they supposed to listen to that if they don't believe in it? You know what I mean? Am I saying it right?
Yeah, take Saturn out of the sentence. I mean, all of the other things that I've mentioned are absolutely recognizable to any human that walks the planet. You have to be responsible for where you are in your life.
True.
Maturity means looking at your circumstances realistically and deciding what you are able to do with that. Within the confines of what you have already built in your life, what are you going to do from here?
Right.
And recognizing that you still have choices and you still have a responsibility to build a meaningful life.
Yeah.
Believe in Saturn or don't, but it's a moment in time. We all know 60, your whole podcast is devoted to this. Your whole film is devoted to this. We all know 60 is a number that looms out there, just like 30.
Right.
And we go, it's a paradigm shift in our lives. And so Saturn to me is just instructive of exactly what that work looks like, which is taking it to the next level, deciding what you want to leave behind as a legacy is very important.
Yeah, I like that. What you want to leave behind, even leaving behind like what you want to let go of, and keep that. Just let go of that stuff. Leave that behind, and don't, if it's not serving you anymore.
Yeah, letting go of the stuff that's not authentic. That's been big for this year. Because of some other stuff Saturn's doing in the sky. But I mean, generally speaking, again, Saturn is the Lord of authenticity. So it's like, are you living an authentic life? Are you willing to step up and do the best you can with what you've got at this age? This is not the time to stop. This is time to get ferocious all over again. And
right. And when I turned 60, 5 years ago, almost 6 already, I wasn't real fond of the number, and I felt kind of like, okay, I don't like this. It was just uncomfortable. It was awkward and uncomfortable, and I thought, what am I going to do with this? So that's when I kind of decided to make a movie. Make a movie. I'm not a filmmaker. I wasn't back then. So I think maybe that might have been part of my second Saturn. I don't know, because it was a couple years after I turned 59 that I thought.
Yeah, but 59 is like the moment of reckoning. And then we come to grips with something over time.
Okay.
These are big processes that, coming to grips with where you are in your life, in your career, in your relationship, and your health and everything.
Right.
It's like trying to do a U-turn with the Titanic. It takes time to move these huge forces of your life to rebuild. Ask anyone that's done a renovation to their house how much time it takes. So these are processes that don't happen overnight. And really for that 7 years after the second Saturn return, you're in this process of going, it's new, you're doing new things, it's kind of interesting. There's all these possibilities. And then you hit that moment after about 7 years and you go, okay, well, am I going to stick with this? Is this really the thing? Or do I need to move on to something else?
So I'm just got my pen here and I'm doing more arithmetic. So around 59, so like say 7.5 years is now when you kind of come to grips with like, okay, and what do you know? I'm 65 right now, and that's like 7-ish years.
Yeah.
7 years. So, and I'm kind of at a point right now, actually, that I'm kind of like, what am I going to do next? And I think the pandemic is kind of plays a big role in that. Like, makes you think a little harder about what the future is, because before it was all set, I'm going to do this and that. Of course, now a lot of that is on hold, put it on the back burner. So now I'm kind of questioning things again. What does my future look like? And as I'm sure everybody on the planet is probably asking that same question currently.
Yeah, it's hard to do Saturn processes like planning during a time when planning is next to impossible in the long term. So at that point, we start to get micro with it. We start to get a little more down to earth and basic with it and say, okay, well, what can I do this month?
Okay.
And then it's still, you get to plan. And if that isn't working, it's like back in March when things were moving so fast. I mean, you couldn't even make a month plan. What am I doing today? What is my plan today? And it's at least planning, and it's at least, instead of saying, oh, I can't do anything because of the world's such a mess, that's one response, but it's not a response that's going to get you very far and make you very happy. So it's a better response is, what can I do with this time of uncertainty? And you've seen,
Exactly.
I'm an entrepreneur, so I'm keyed into a lot of entrepreneurial podcasting groups and whatever. And there was the whole thing about pivoting your business and all that. It's like, well, to some extent, a lot of people have really had to do that. Just say,
Yep.
and what it's been great about it is it's taken people to the core of what it is they do, not the way they do it. So it's like, yeah, maybe if you have a brick and mortar store, yeah, you can see where my mind is today. You have to suddenly pivot and figure out how to do it online. And
Right.
what it does is make you focus in on what it is you actually do, what you provide.
Right.
And then the ways you do it, you can work that out.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, and that makes sense because I feel like in March we were all just scared and nervous and the world's going to explode and we're all going to die in 2 weeks. And now we're kind of just getting more sad and depressed, and now it's just status quo. And recently I turned the corner, like maybe a week and a half ago, where I was so like negative and so couldn't leave my house, and just every thought I had was negative. Then something clicked in me, and I turned the corner, and I feel so much less anxiety and so much less fear. It's still there a little, but I thought, what the hell am I doing? It's like, I'm here. This is how it's going to be for a while. And I thought, I got to get back out to volunteering. Maybe I'll get a dog. Maybe I'll do this. Maybe I'll do that. I feel like my old self for some reason. And I don't know if that's like what you're talking about. Like, instead of like, I can't plan the future. So let's just do something more positive right now and more what I really like to do, which is volunteering and helping people. And let's get out of my own head for a minute. That's my thing.
Yeah, I think so. And enlarging your idea again, of how getting a little more creative about ways to do it. We couldn't do that at first. Everybody was so blown out of the water and sleeping all the time and binging junk food and Netflix and stuff. And I think now it is human beings adjust really quickly, and we're normalizing a little bit, and people are seeing different opportunities for themselves than we did in the beginning. And what I've been saying to my clients for the last 3 months is, you have to be a little patient with yourself. You're living in a world that's completely fallen apart overnight. And so don't expect so much of yourself. And Saturn wants us to do the best we can with what we've got.
Okay.
But I think he grades on a curve, right? I think he says, look, all things get, as long as you don't just crawl up in a hole in the fetal position and stay there, I'm going to reward you for doing just about anything, make a loaf of bread, points in your.
Exactly. Well, sure. I mean, because we all were just freaked out, like we don't know what we were supposed to be doing. And now that things that we're into month 4, for some of us it's month 4, it's like, okay, all right, here's the deal, here's where we are. Make the best of it. Just relax. And I know for some people it's not that easy, and I feel for them. But some of us can have a little stronger metal. We're made of a little stronger metal, so it might be a little easier for some of us, but
it's really hard, and we have more resources. Lest we forget, there are plenty of people that don't have as much, to really do anything with. And I'm keenly aware of that. And in the beginning of all this, I really thought I was going to be one of them, because there is no less essential employee than an astrologer, so I did not know where that was going to go, but that's all, it's fine now. It's all worked out. But yeah, it was a very scary time. Now we have toilet paper. The world's much better.
It's toilet paper. We
don't need much as a species, apparently.
Well, it was all, again, because we were all, it's like the world opened up and like, what's happening right now? Let's throw a pandemic in and see how everybody handles it. Well, we didn't handle it very well in the beginning, but we weren't supposed to handle it well. We didn't know what we were doing. So,
and that is a beautiful metaphor for Saturn as well. It's like going into it, we'll make all kinds of mistakes. When you decide to remake your life, which is what Saturn wants you to do at the Saturn returns. It's like, let's really take this and fine tune it. It's like you've got everything just kind of running, in a particular way, and you finally get it the way you want it, and then you start to get dissatisfied. And you go, I got to do something different now. And you're not going to know what you're doing at the beginning.
Of course,
you won't have a clue, and that's not the point of the exercise.
It's not. No. I think it's quite fascinating. And when I turned the corner, I reflected back to March. It seems like about 9 months ago, but I realized how it was just so different. And I don't know, it's fascinating to me how it all works. And we're all going to make it. Hopefully we'll all make it. And we all can do this. I don't know. I mean,
we can do what we can do at
we
least.
can do what we can do. We can do
Yeah.
what we can do. That's right.
And that is, we've all been in a big state of overwhelm too, I think, for the last few years. And it's very valuable when you start getting into a place where you feel very nihilistic sometimes, and you think, oh, the world's a mess and there's nothing I can do about it personally. And the valuable thing about a concept like Saturn, which is it speaks to that part of us that can always do something, even if it's very localized, even if it's just treating the people in your household nicely, or taking your dog out for a walk regularly,
Right.
or making an effort to reach out to your friends to do a Zoom call or something.
For
We can
sure.
all do something. And if we can focus on that,
Right.
then that makes things feel a lot less overwhelming and a lot more doable.
And a lot more doable, because I think a lot of people, such as myself, I felt in the beginning, I felt like I got to do something. It has to be something big. But as we move along here, I just thought it's really just about connecting with my friends and maybe donating to a small organization in town here, and stuff like that. That it's the little things that can make a big difference sometimes. And especially like my friend, I talked to my friend on the phone last night, and she said we all just need to stay connected, even if it's just a little text like, "Hi, how are you doing?" And that could mean the world to somebody that doesn't get that like ever. So I don't know.
Sure can.
Yeah.
Because a lot of us are quarantining alone. I mean,
Right.
And I think that is why a lot of people quarantining alone, they are thinking of pets, because
Right.
you need that extra energy in the house and just someone to talk to, so you're not talking
Talking to the walls. Yeah.
to yourself. Guess Saturn moves into a new sign, as it will next year, Aquarius, which is a very community oriented sign. We'll sort this stuff out and people will figure, but it's not easy. It's kind of interesting. We've reached this moment of social interaction stopping in its tracks.
Yeah.
Over the next couple of years, but I feel confident we'll come out of the other side of that really having worked a lot of that stuff out. This is the optimistic Jupiterian side of me speaking, not the Saturn side, which is going to be so hard.
Boy, this Saturn stuff is tough stuff, babe.
Pretty serious, but he's like a tough teacher or a drill sergeant or a coach or a mentor who wants you to do your best.
I was going to say it's for your own good. He's like tough love.
It really is. And some of us are really rebellious and we really don't respond well to the voice of authority, even if it's coming from within us. So that can be tricky.
Okay.
And you were born at a time, based on your age, where that generation has a particularly difficult time with authority and taking orders, which God love you all, because you move us forward as a people. But
oh, well, thank you.
For some people, it's easier than others. But,
Well, I still to this day I'm getting better at it. Even at this age, I'm getting better at it. People telling me what to do, or, that's just, but the cool thing is, because of my age, I don't have to listen to you at all if I don't want to.
See, that's the thing. And hopefully by this age, hopefully by the age of 59, we have internalized Saturn. We've internalized. See, at the first Saturn return, you're just coming off that thing of your parents tell you what to do, and then school tells you what to do, and then your boss is telling you what to do. And you're like, when do I start getting to tell myself what to do?
Sure.
And that is the Saturn thing. You want to be the authority. You want to be the author of your story, of your life. And that's what Saturn is trying to help you do. Because when you say you want to be the boss, act like the boss. Run.
Oh my gosh.
Your life. Don't make me nag you. You know what you need to do. And we fight and we fight, we fight. Most of the people that come to me are having Saturn issues. So I hear this all day. I know every way we duck and weave to get away from this stuff. And I get to be the voice of Saturn in the reading.
There you go.
Just
old man Saturn, the tough Saturn.
He is very tough, but he loves us.
But he loves us. He's being tough for a reason. Let me ask you this: those of people that are listening, my viewers and listeners, that are entering this 59, 60, 61. What should they be kind of thinking about right now? Should they be focusing on the Saturn thing, or just letting themselves ease into the next journey? I mean, with Saturn or not, I think that's what they should do. I mean, listen to themselves.
Well, I think that's absolutely the message of the second Saturn return. And these ages, but it's like, listen to your best self.
Yeah.
Your best self has the things that you have been saying your whole life that you wanted to do, and you still haven't done them, and you're still really keen on them. Why are you not doing them?
Why are you not doing that?
And those are the kinds of things at this age that we start to look outside ourselves. I'm too old. I can't do that. Oh, my feet hurt. Oh, I don't have enough money.
I'm
Oh,
not good at it. Yeah.
I'm not good at it. My partner don't want to do it. You know, all these things. And at the end of the day, they are excuses. And excuses are things we use to keep ourselves feeling safe, that we're not getting out of our comfort zone. So it's a time, yeah. And that's what I encourage people to do at these ages, is to get serious about why you're here. Because you're not going to be here forever. And people start to really feel that at this age.
Yes.
And if they're really in a lot of fear all the time and in paralysis, they're having a bad response to Saturn. So what they have to do is, to get out of that, is to make the slightest move in a positive direction. And a positive direction meaning something that is heart focused, that really feels meaningful to you about why you're here.
And what do you say to people, though, that have no idea what they want to do? What if they're kind of, even at this age, they feel, especially at this age, I feel kind of lost. I went to school, I got married, I got the kids, and now I'm alone, and my spouse died, we got divorced, and I still kind of don't know what I want to do. How do you help those? How does can astrology play a role in that, as far as something? Or
well, absolutely. And every case is so different. Every individual is so different. But generally speaking, where Saturn comes into the picture there is to say, you really do know. There are things that you've always been interested in, and I'll sometimes make them back and say, it's the old question, what did you want to be when you grew up? What did you want to be when you were 15? How did you see your life going? And even if they can't necessarily do that, because there are some doors that close to us through our lives. I cannot be an Olympic gymnast at this point in my life. I'm sorry, those doors are closed if they were ever open. So it's a thing of helping people gain a little bit of clarity and recovery of the things that they thought they wanted to do. Because if someone's in a state like that where they're a little bit demoralized and they just really have no idea, you have to get them into the place of figuring out what it is that makes them happy, what brings them to life, because that is what's needed. That's a sun response. It's like kindle that fire of enthusiasm and creativity. Okay. And then Saturn will help you build a life that lets you do more of that. That's the whole idea.
I see.
Is to give you a healthy container.
Yeah. That's pretty interesting. I'm gonna process that a little bit more, because that's some of that makes a lot of sense.
See those wheels turning there, Tracy.
Right.
They seem like going,
I had a Zoom session with my therapist a couple of days ago. We were talking about this and that. And I've always had this idea of, I got to move. I want to move. And I said to her, I think it's deeper than the moving thing. It's about some kind of change or commitment or something. And why do I? And she goes, it's some kind of longing you have. Like, what are you longing for? Like everybody else is moving and changing and doing this and that. And it's like, I just feel like I'm stuck. Of course, I'm not stuck. I can do whatever I want. But there's a reason I'm making myself stuck or feeling stuck. Am I imposing that on myself? It kind of sounds like it. So you're onto something there, as far as I got to let myself think about. I like that.
I like what she says about the yearning thing. It's coming from a place of, what is my spirit still wanting to accomplish? What do I still want to do? And this is then, and once you identify that, the rest is much easier, because you know what the container needs to look like. Maybe it is a new home. Maybe it's a new city. Maybe it's a new job. Maybe it's whatever it is.
I don't know. I feel like those are just like excuses or things that I'm plugging into. Like those are going to be the answers. I mean, that doesn't mean they're going to be the answers. But.
Well, there's no question that change and movement get you out of stasis. It gets you to a place where you're evolving and you're excited and you wake up in the morning and go, ooh, today I get to do this. That's a great feeling. That's what we all want.
For sure. And certainly this pandemic situation is making me think a little harder on, like we said earlier, on the future and what do I really want to do or what do I really don't want to do.
Yeah.
And who do I want in my life and all that stuff, and where my family is and where other people in my life, where they fit in or don't fit in. It's pretty interesting. I keep saying for this 4 months, if someone isn't going inward with some of this stuff, with these questions during these 4 months, I don't know. I mean, how can you not be thinking about that stuff? I don't know.
Well, a lot of people are doing everything they can to avoid thinking about it, and that's natural. If you're depressed or in
I
pain,
suppose.
yeah, people are. I've been trying so hard to not be in a judgmental place about anybody at this point, because
Same.
it's crazy what we're going through, and people are. I think most everybody's doing the best they can. They really are.
Exactly.
And it's not necessarily their best self, but it's like, well, they're getting by. They're getting through the day, and we're all getting a little better every day. And
and that's all we can do is do our best, because day by day, and try to live in the moment. And that's, if you made another day, that's awesome, because that's kind of all we got right now. Huh?
Yeah, it's Saturn work. We're like creating a new paradigm now, and it's like getting birth. It's like, I think something being born is as scary as death, because they're both you're in the unknown. And I always think, well, yeah, we're scary to think of being on our deathbed and seeing that we're getting ready to die, because we don't know what's coming, right? We might have faith, we might have a philosophy, but I think, I wonder if it was exactly the same the day we were going to be born. We must have been terrified. And then we come out and there's all this light, this screaming and blood, and it's this crazy scene,
Sure.
Being born is hard and it's scary. So that's, I think, kind of where we're at as a society. So we all just have to take a deep breath and do what's in front of us, and focus.
Because we don't know what's in front of us, and that's the maddening part of it. We don't know what's in front of us. I mean, we immediately in front of us, we kind of know, but everything is so uncertain, so that makes us a little cuckoo.
It does.
There's no answers. There's no definite answers. Okay, this is what it is. There's that. So we're also not in control of our lives, as it turns out.
Mm-hmm. Who knew?
Who knew? We thought we were in control.
Yeah, we're, especially Americans, we really tend to think that way. Right. And I think that the other thing I think to remember at the Saturn return is, at the same time one has a Saturn return, they are resonating in a leadership role with society. So something about what we are going through at the Saturn return personally is reflected in the collective. And it means that we're in a unique position to talk about it, to be leaders in some way. And I think that's another thing about being at these ages, at 29 and 58, and moving in that direction.
Yeah, I don't know
how to do that, to be
figuring out how to do that, and again, being open to doing that. I'm feeling pretty good about this age. I don't know how you're feeling about it, but I'm feeling pretty good about it. Of course, 5 years ago I was not so great about it, but now as time went on, I'm kind of like, okay, I think I'm okay. I mean, obviously there's still some things I have to work on, obviously, because there's always a state of transition or transformation, I think, happening. Someone the other day said, well, I think Olympia Dukakis said, well, isn't life just the basis of transformation? Isn't that what that is? I'm like, that kind of makes sense.
It does. We're a work in progress. I mean, and if you can look at your life that way,
right?
And there are these important markers along the way that help you check in and just monitor your progress and say, yeah, am I making some progress? Because that's, I think, what we're here to do. Is
for sure. It's all about transformation and transitions, and I don't know, I'm kind of digging that. It's like, I don't know, it's kind of refreshing, actually, if you think about it. I don't know.
It feels better at this age. I mean, for me, I'm not to 60, but 60 doesn't scare me in the least.
No.
40 was hard.
Really?
40 freaked me out. Yeah.
Oh,
50
no.
was fine.
I
60.
thought, yeah, well, good for you. I thought 40 was cool, 50 was cool, and then 60 is
Yeah.
like, not so much.
Yeah.
Um, but
I'm
I mean,
embracing my gray. So,
embrace the gray. See, I was gray, now I'm not gray. I just thought I'm the opposite of what everybody else. Everybody's like going, you're gonna go natural gray. Now I'm just adding color. It's like, okay, I've
and
been
I
gray
love it. You were blue last time I saw you. So I'm liking the pink very
well,
much.
I think I was gray last time I saw you.
Yeah, but
That
it
was
was blue or
was it
something.
blue? I haven't been
Yeah,
blue for a while.
it was pretty fun.
I don't know. Yeah, I know. I just like felt like
You
doing
look great,
something new.
though.
So anything else you want to add to this as far as the age thing or the second Saturn or
Well, I mean, what's the third Saturn about? I mean,
what's the third
if
Saturn
you
about?
think of that, you're coming up on 90. I mean, that's pretty staggering right there. But more and more people are getting there.
Right.
More and more, I'm very shocked when I hear of people dying in their 60s, and a little taken aback when they're dying in their 70s. 80, the 80s feels about normal, and 90, sure,
Yep.
plenty of people who
Right.
are still doing things. And at 90, it really is about that that role of getting ready for the next world is
Right.
what you're doing at that point, and whatever
Yeah.
that means, adjusting the externals of your life so that you're leaving this place the way you want to leave it when you go, getting rid of stuff, doing your end of life things,
Right.
and of course we do that at 58 a lot too.
Right. For
But
sure.
it's like really getting that is a very interesting time because you have to make peace with something that is really scary. It's the final exam, isn't it? You kind of go, well, can I look back at this life with satisfaction? And even on your deathbed, it's not too late to set something right. If you've had a disagreement with a family member and they're sitting next to the bed, do you exchange words of love? Do you let that go? I mean, there's almost always a chance to make some kind of constructive response to what's around you. And I think it's the same going towards 90. What are you going to do? What are you leaving behind? How will you be thought of? What's your obituary going to be like? It sounds grim, but it's realistic.
But it's realistic. And actually, my therapist and I talked about that, and she said, what would you write in your obituary? Like you're a filmmaker, blah blah blah. She says, are you happy about that? And then she says, what else would you say in your obituary? And I'm thinking, what would I say about myself? I mean, so I said to her, maybe I should maybe I'm going to do that exercise and just kind of sit down and write my obituary and to talk about yourself and your accomplishments, I guess. I don't know.
It's accomplishments, but I think that's the thing about the third Saturn return. As we said before, turning 58 is a lot different than 29 because it's much more about pleasing yourself at this stage in life. And I can only imagine, clearly I'm a long way off from the third Saturn return. But when I look at it, I think, well, what criteria are you using to evaluate success then?
Right.
It's not even success, maybe, about achieving what you want without permission from the outside world. It's more about, how do I stand in society? How do I stand for my the young relatives that come after me, when they go through? It's not even about, well, have I started a multi-million-dollar company or anything?
No, not at all.
So not about that.
It's so not about that.
Yeah.
It's so not about that. Or maybe, how I lived my life and how I helped others and how they perceive me. Did they perceive me as a kind person or something like that? How did I was my life well lived? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Did I enjoy my
Whatever
life?
that means to you. Yeah, did I enjoy it? That is a really big question, I think. And I think that can be helpful for us maybe at this stage of life.
I think so.
Around 60, to say it's not too late to have the kind of life that you want.
Right.
And how do you want it to look from 90? What do you want to be able to say you succeeded in? I want to spend more time with my husband. I would, we're here in the same house 24/7, and it's like I rarely see him. I'm here in front of this screen all day long. I want to spend. He's retired. I want to spend more time with him. I want, I would love to be spending more time with friends and with my family, at least staying in touch with them. And I would love to have a hobby. I have no hobbies. I turn all my hobbies into businesses, and I have no hobbies.
What would your hobby be if someone said, here, you stop working, here's your hobby? What would that hobby be?
I don't have a clue. And if I did, because people say, what do you like to do? And I say, work. I don't know. What do I like to do? I used to play music. I've done all that. But I think I would still like to write, and I would like to write other kinds of things. I would love to write about something other than astrology for a while, because I spend hours every week writing about astrology, and I would like to maybe experiment with writing different kinds of things. But when I think of hobbies, I think of those wonderful, engrossing activities that you sit down to do it, and then you look up the clock and it's been 5 hours, and you had no sense of time passing. I'm nothing like that, really. So I don't know what it would be. What are your hobbies? Do you have hobbies?
I like to read, but I'm a lazy reader.
You're a scanner.
I'm a scanner, and I like many people, I buy books and then they get piled up by my bed, and then I have like 2 or 3 going at a time, and then I maybe won't read for like 7 or 8 days, and then maybe I'll read a few chapters, and then same. So, and I'm like on Facebook, it's like, oh, these book people are recommending these books, and I buy more books. It's like, really? I just got like 5 in the mail the other day.
You're absorbing them by osmosis if you're lucky.
Yeah, everything sounds interesting, and I want to read it all, but of course I can't. I like hiking, and I like walking, and I like being outside, and I don't know if that's a hobby. I guess it is.
It's an interest. It's an engrossing interest.
But a hobby, I don't know that I have. I don't play an instrument, so I don't I'm not engrossed in anything like for hours. I mean, when this all started, I was doing puzzles, but that was just like
Suddenly I'm surrounded by puzzle people, and they'll sit down, and it's like they'll do a puzzle in a day.
Right. Yeah. But that was in the beginning, pandemic paranoia. Like, I gotta do something so I don't think about everything. So I did like 3 puzzles in like a couple of weeks, and I still have one on my table here behind the laptop, and it's been there for like a month because it's too hard to finish. And I said to somebody, can I just shove it back in the box? She said, no, you have to finish it.
I don't think you have to finish it. I think
because my whole life,
stuff you do for fun, so you get to do whatever you want with it. I think that
here's the thing.
If you have, like, what I learned from learning to play the guitar and things when I was young, was doing the hard work of learning how to do it was what made it possible to have the bliss of being able to just do it. But you've had to first, I always get connected with these things that are like, oh, I got to work really hard to get there. And then I get there and, oh my God, it's the promised land. It's great. But I want a hobby that's just, if I don't want to work hard at it, I don't work hard at it. I just want something fun, but I don't know what that looks like.
But I have this thing in my head because I'm a person who, as I said in my film, I never finish anything. That's why I wanted to finish my film, because it really means something to me. So I feel like with this puzzle, I can't freaking put it back in the box until I finish it. There's like 30 pieces left, but they're all black pieces. So
Saturn is speaking to you, because
Saturn's
color is black. This thing of you will finish it and will make you proud of yourself.
Exactly.
You're really speaking to you, Tracy.
Exactly. So I'm waiting for it to like rain or snow or something, so I don't feel guilty about not doing. It's crappy out. I can't go outside. So
I think it's so beautiful right now here, anyway, that it's just
nice here.
Do anything.
Yeah. Can you go outside now? No.
Yeah, we're doing that. And, I walk around the neighborhood all the time, not even with a mask, because there's nobody around.
Right.
But if somebody does come by with their dog or something, I'm, detouring around or whatever.
Right.
Some of the restaurants were open briefly, but I think they're closing back down and going back to takeouts. And stuff. So.
And that's happening all over the country. So.
Yep.
But I'm gonna try to finish the puzzle this weekend.
Good for you.
I'm trying to get it done because it's and maybe that's part of my anxiety is like the puzzle's always back here nagging at me.
Oh, at least it's something you can control.
Huh?
It's something you can control.
Right?
Yeah, whether or not you finish that. Well, that's, for me, I'm always finishing things. So it's, I'm a real kind of stick to it, sort of, even when I shouldn't, even when it's long past the time I should have let it go.
No.
So I'm looking for hobbies where there's just, I make bread, I do that sort of stuff, but it's not the same as, I'd love to think I
Right.
could garden, but I know that's not happening.
I'm not a gardener. I have a balcony.
Dirt, sweat, no.
Yeah. No.
I just want it to appear and be there. I don't want to.
Exactly. No, I only have a balcony, so I'm not going to do the garden thing.
But I see a plant back there in the corner. So
well, I have a ton of plants. It's almost like too many plants, but I like taking care of them and, watering them and nurturing them and that kind of thing. They're all doing really well, actually. So,
excellent. Well done.
yeah, well done. So, this was fantastic. Thank you so much for the enlightening and invaluable information. I hope, I'm sure my listeners enjoyed every word of it.
Well, I hope so, because I know it is a little bit weird. I live in such a little rarefied world where everybody speaks my language of astrology.
Yeah.
And so I hope that, I've given some tools that are non-astrology specific and just give people a different way of thinking of this age.
Yes.
And why we feel the things we do. So
Yeah.
thank you for inviting me. It really has been a treat.
Absolutely. And if April's website is bigskyAstrology.com. You've got a podcast, I think, airs on Mondays.
We do. It's the Big Sky Astrology podcast every Monday. Okay. And I would encourage people to sign up for my mailing list on my website.
Okay.
It's very easy to find the sign up form if they're interested, because they send out mailings I write a new sort of a planetary highlights column every week. I do a lot of artwork, a lot of digital artwork and stuff. And have information about my services and the things I sell and things. So
wonderful. The website is beautiful. I got on it a couple of days ago, and it's really just very well done and just laid out very nice. And all kinds of, like you said, lots of goodies and tips in there. And I'm assuming your books are listed in there. And
they are indeed. I have a book called The Essential Guide to Practical Astrology. That's a really good, accessible if people want to know a little more about astrology. That's a great place to start.
Okay. Wonderful. So everybody check out her website and give it a look-see. And thanks for tuning in, everybody. And thank you so much, April. Really, really appreciate it. It was a ton of fun. You take care of yourself, stay healthy, and good luck with the cat thing.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. We'll see you later. Okay. Bye.